And it was a wonderful thing, the Passion of the Christ. We saw also that there's going to be 20 years later, they are now making a sequel. And this sequel is going to focus on the resurrection and the second coming. So that's in production even right now. Mel Gibson's doing a second movie, so that's correct. But there were a lot of gifts, and they were given cheerfully, and it is exciting to see how God loves a cheerful giver, and he will multiply whatever we give. He'll multiply it, and he'll use it in a mighty way. And it's important, the instruction, to give it cheerfully, whatever you give. It doesn't have to be 10%. It's as God leads you. And the key is the condition of our hearts. I know I didn't grow up giving a tithe of 10%. That's not the way I grew up, so I wasn't used to it. And when God put that in my heart to do that, then He changed me. And it was as He led me in His timing, and we say baby steps, right? Sometimes we need baby steps to get to that point. I told my brother once, my younger brother, who's very wealthy, by the way, I said, we were talking about tithing, and I told him that I tithed. I don't remember if we were in our 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever it was. And he said, easy for you, you don't have much. That's right. You know, it's a little harder for somebody to give 10% of $1 million, I would think. It's just letting go of a lot more. And we all get used to our lifestyles, but the key is to give as God leads you. And I think that He would, no matter what the amount is, the key is to give cheerfully. Because it's the condition of our heart. That's the key. And so what we give cheerfully. So looking at, again here, every man according as he purposeth in his heart. Now we're going to look in a little bit about thinking with our hearts and how we do think with our hearts. So he warns us not to give grudgingly or out of our necessity, but God loves a cheerful giver. God's able to make all grace abound, that power and desire to do His will, always having all sufficiency in all things, and it abounds to every good work. Well, I often think of Proverbs 17:22 when I think about giving. Proverbs 17:22 says that a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. Well, there's a couple things that God is teaching us through that. Number one, medicine is good. So it's like if somebody comes to you and says, don't ever take medicine. Well, I like the idea of limiting medicine, but God does say medicine is good. Now, we need to define what medicine is. That's an interesting thought there. But the second part of it, this merry heart does good. So a cheerful giver, this merry heart, as we're cheerful, is going to do good for us. So it's not just the blessings that come from giving, but also like a health renewal, a renewing of our health from being happy and cheerful and merry. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine. It's fun to see babies when they smile. And I have a granddaughter that's 10 months old, and I get to take care of her on Fridays, and she smiles all the time. And I am edified by seeing her smile. I can't stop taking her picture. I just take her picture all the time. Smile after smile. Such a merry heart. Such a medicine to me. It's doing good for me like a medicine just to see her happiness. Well, I believe that sincerity is important in giving. So in 2 Corinthians 8, 2 Corinthians 8, if we flip back one page, and verses 5 through 8. And this they did, not as we hoped, but first gave their own selves to the Lord, and to us by the will of God, insomuch that we desired Titus that he had begun, that as he had begun, so he would also finish in you the same grace also. Therefore, as ye abound in everything, in faith, and utterance, and knowledge, and in all diligence, and in your love to us, see that ye abound in this grace also. I speak not by commandment, but by occasion of the forwardness of others, and to prove the sincerity of your love. Now, in looking up the word forwardness, it has these connotations to it in the Greek: haste, speed, eager, earnest, diligent. When I was a kid, I couldn't wait to put the money in the plate. I loved it. It was fun. You know, my father would always give me money to put in the plate, and I always loved it. It was just fun to me. And I knew, even as a kid, that I was giving to God and not to me. Haste, speed, eager, earnest, diligent. And this sincerity. Well, we learn things the hard way about sincerity, don't we? We have a tendency to trust people. We've got to be discerning. Well, I learned a little bit about sincerity one day on the Monopoly board. I was playing Monopoly with my brother John and this neighbor of ours named Mike Williams. We called him Wilbur. I have no idea why we called him Wilbur, but we did. And he was a great guy. And yet, in playing Monopoly, we would make these deals. You see, we changed the rules and we could make deals. I'll trade you this property for this property, and then make the game go a little more fun and more quickly. And so we made a deal. And I looked at his situation, looked at my situation, John's situation. This would be a good deal for both of us, I thought. And we made the deal, and then he lifted up the board and pulled out a bunch of 500s. You see, I could see his money on the table. I knew he didn't have enough money to put a bunch of houses on those monopolies I was giving him, but he hid the money under the board. He was not sincere in his giving. You see, sincerity should couple our giving. We must be sincere in what we're giving. And we must also give of ourselves. Anything that we give is multiplied, and so the use that God has for us is multiplied when we give ourselves to Him. We should give ourselves to the Lord. Gave their own selves to the Lord. Verse 5. The will of God is to give our own selves to the Lord. Luke chapter 6 and verse 38. This is an interesting one that we hear a lot.